Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining our webinar today. My name is Tamara and I'm a Science and Technology Officer at the Consulate General of Switzerland in Vancouver. Helping me today is my colleague, Disha Rambia, our Public Diplomacy Officer at the Consulate. And we have three speakers for you today. We are joined by Brita, Bamert, Scientific Advisor, International Research and Innovation Programs, State Secretariat for Education, Research and Innovation, SERI, Switzerland. She is managing matters related to Horizon Europe in Switzerland. We also are joined by Tamara Sone, the Senior Policy Analyst, Science and Research Sector, Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada. Tamara is also the National Contact Point Coordinator for Horizon Europe. And then finally, we are joined by Dr. Aris Leivadeas, Professor, Department of Software and IT Engineering at AS, University of Quebec, Canada. In today's webinar, we will present the Horizon Europe opportunities available to Swiss and Canadian researchers, and we will introduce support mechanisms that facilitate participation. We will also have Dr. Leivadeas share his experience collaborating with European colleagues on Horizon Europe projects. We will be providing time at the end of our webinar for questions. All right, and next I will pass the word to our first speaker, Brita Bamert, who will share a little bit on Horizon Europe.
Yes, thank you very much, Tamara. And also from my side, welcome and thank you that I can talk a little bit about Switzerland and collaboration between Switzerland and Canada. I'm based in Bern right now, here in front of the government building. And it's quite late already, 6 o'clock in the evening. And I guess we can just start to dive into Horizon Europe. So first, I just wanted to show some data about Horizon Europe. It's actually the world's biggest program by the European Commission. And it's from 2021 to 2027. So each EU framework program has a duration of 7 years. And in 2028, then the next one would start. And it's also the biggest program in terms of budget. So in these 7 years, the budget of Horizon Europe is over 140 billion Canadian dollars. And with that money for those 7 years, approximately 30,000 projects are funded in total. And it's also a very international program. So over 150 countries, almost all participate. And such participation or global collaboration is also very much encouraged. And this is also why we are doing this presentation today to try to connect Swiss and Canadian researchers and institutions. Now, this looks quite complicated on a first view, but this is Horizon Europe. It is divided in different program parts, and especially through these 3 pillars that you can see. And Canada actually got associated to Pillar 2 last year in July. So in this pillar, Canadian institutions and researchers participate in the role as so-called beneficiary, and they have the same rights as countries of Europe or the European Union that are associated to the program. And Switzerland is planning or will this year become associated to the whole program, as Switzerland is based in Europe. This actually means that Switzerland is also almost there. So Canada got associated last year, and Switzerland has now not been associated to this program for the last 4 years, since 2021. But now it is planned by both parties, the European Commission and Switzerland, that this EU programs agreement between the 2 countries that we've been negotiating is going to be signed in November. So as from November, Switzerland will also become associated to the whole program and also to this Pillar 2. However, even this year, since all these calls 2025, a transitional arrangement was in place, meaning that in this period until becoming associated, also the institutions and researchers in Switzerland are able to participate in the same way as Canadian researchers are. So collaboration can start right away. It could start even in 2025, in the beginning of the year already. Now, what does this exactly mean for Swiss and Canadian collaboration? So we've seen in the years since 2021 up to now, since the project or since the program Horizon Europe is active, Swiss and Canadian institutions have been collaborating in 58 projects. And this is a total amount of about 100 million Canadian dollars. And the majority of this funding comes from the Swiss side. And there have been no project coordinations up to now. So both countries can also take the lead in coordinating these projects. That has not happened yet. And just also for you to get a bit of an overview. So for Switzerland, Canada is the 35th most important country in Horizon Europe as a partner. And this is not a bad number, actually, if you consider that Switzerland collaborates with about 150 countries. And of course, most collaborations take place within Europe or with neighboring countries. So this is quite a good number. And also for Canada, Switzerland ranks 11th among its most important Horizon Europe partners. So this is where we stand now. These are already quite good numbers, but of course there is room for improvement and more collaboration. Now let's have a look again on this whole structure of Horizon Europe. So both countries are associated or will be associated to this pillar 2. These are the collaborative projects where consortia of a lot of different international partners that can be higher education institutions or also organizations from the private sector, they come together to do research and innovation on a certain topic. And this number that I mentioned before of 58 collaborations, these are kind of divided in these, we call them the clusters. The most collaboration, they take place in the cluster digital industry and space, or climate, energy, mobility, or food. So there we have about 40 partners from Switzerland. Yes, it's about 50-50, so about 20 from Switzerland, 20 from Canada that already collaborate in these calls. Then we also have some in health, also in culture, creativity, and inclusive society, and none in civil security for society. So just for you to get a bit of an overview, we are actually collaborating in the whole pillar. There's not like a specific topic that is more important up to now in these collaborations. Most of the project collaborations actually take place in these Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions, and this is an instrument promoting early career researchers and international mobility. And Canada is not associated to this pillar, but participates in many of the calls also with Switzerland as so-called third party, so with own funding. And here we have a lot of these doctoral networks where there is exchange between Swiss and Canadian higher education institutions. So it's also possible to participate mostly, I mean, as a higher education institution in this case, in such programs or such instruments of Horizon Europe where Canada is not associated, for example. And what is probably quite interesting for you is to know a little bit what kind of institutions collaborate in these projects that we saw now. So I just wrote down some of the ones that have most collaborations together. And it's also, I'm sure you're wondering, like, where could I find Swiss partners now? And this is a bit of a, I mean, usually researchers or institutions, they look into their existing networks with what kind of institutions or researchers have we collaborated before, and then they get to know each other like that or get into the same topics. So I would suggest that you also ask maybe in your international relations offices at your institutions if there are some kind of agreements, for example, with universities in Switzerland, and if there is like a starting point where you can start your first contacts. But other than that, I know that also Tamara Sone, after my presentation will talk a little bit more about how you can find partners in general and what platforms exist. So I will just leave you here with this further information websites that you can check out. So if you're interested in information on Switzerland's status, what will happen then after November when we sign the agreement, the first website would be for you. And then we have U-Research. So this is like the Swiss organizations for national contact points for the Swiss project participants. This is not directly for you, but if you have, when you then find Swiss project partners, you can lead them to this website in case they do not know. And then what we also like to share is the Enterprise Europe network. This is an organization that has a database mostly on private sector organizations who can also participate in Horizon Europe. And I just put the link of the Canadian website here for you. So that's all from my side. And now I'm happy to introduce Tamara Sone, who is the Canadian National Contact Point for Horizon Europe.
Thank you very much, Brita. Thank you for your presentation. And so I'm going to continue on Brita's presentation and talk a little bit more about where to start. And it's like you find out all these great information, but here's where you start. So you start at the EU Funding and Tenders portal, and this is the European Union's way, or the Commission actually, it's their way of simplifying things. And if you've ever worked with the European Commission, you'll know that nothing is ever simple. But in their idea and their hopes of simplification, they've made one website to rule them all. This website has everything you can need to find partners, to find regulations, to find calls for proposals. Everything you need to apply to Horizon Europe is on this webpage. The problem is it is so complex, it requires training to fully understand it. And there is training available through the Horizon Academy, and on YouTube. You can also find many, many tutorials to walk you through this program or to this website in general. But my recommendation to you is go to the website, play around with it. Once you get a hang of it, it can be a little more intuitive, but it is not generally intuitive. So, but again, my team and I are here to help you navigate this program, which is not easy, very complex, but extremely worthwhile, and gives us opportunities to work with our European partners as well as other international partners as well, such as South Korea and New Zealand as well, who are also associate countries. But we're very excited that Switzerland will be joining the team of associate countries. Next slide, please. So under Pillar 2, there's two main types of actions that you would need to be concerned with. So there's in the calls for proposals, you'll see RIA and IA. So research innovation actions and innovation actions. So the research innovation action is basically more on the lower TRL level. These are, we're talking about, technology that's applied research or technology validation. So we're going from, in terms of proof of concept, and more to validation or demonstration from the research and innovation actions to innovation actions. And in the calls for proposals, it will identify very clearly where the TRL they're expecting you to start at, and where the TRL they're expecting you to finish at. So TRL is technology readiness level, for those who are not aware, but that is the idea. So what is a Horizon Europe consortium? So consortium, we're talking about all these calls for proposals. You must work with other partners. You cannot do this alone. So number one thing to keep in mind is a call for proposals. So Pillar 2 is top down. So the call for proposals is clearly identified the problem you are supposed to solve. So you find partners, and you have to work with one EU member state and one associate, and either other EU member state or associate country. You need at least 3 partners, but more often than not, it scales with the project, and there can be 10 to 15 members. And in addition, you can have more than one Canadian or more than one Swiss partner in a consortium. And very much, they talk about successful consortia that have to have a balance of complementary skills and perspectives. When they talk about diversification, this is what they mean. So that you can have someone from a research institution, from an SME, or, you know, someone who is, for example, if you're looking at border technology, for example, you'd have someone doing the technology from research institution, and then you'd have someone from the CBSA, a Canadian Border Services Agency, as the end user of the product. Just before we change slides and talk about where to find partners, the consortium agreement, there's two documents you must sign. One is the funding agreement. And it cannot be changed. It is what it is. It is quite lengthy, but we can be here to help. Yeah, I'll help with you with that, but mostly you should speak with your legal team if you're not familiar with these types of proposals to make sure that it's right for you before you take on that role. And in the consortium agreement, this is an agreement between consortium partners. In this agreement, you can be changed. Very important, it is where the intellectual property rights are identified. So if you want to protect your IP, this is where you do it. It's very important to note that the coordinator is the one that receives all the funding from the European Commission, and then they distribute that to their partners. They have the biggest role. They are the point of contact with the European Commission, and so they're the ones that manage everything. Under that, there's a work package leader, and then each of the task leaders, and then fundamentally partners. My recommendation is that if you are not familiar with the program, that you look to participate more as a partner or a task leader than going all the way to a coordinator program. So how do you find partners and collaborators? Like Brita mentioned, there's many, many opportunities. She mentioned the European Enterprise Network. Again, I have the Canadian link here, the funding and tenders portal. They have a partner search tool that I showed earlier. It's the website I showed earlier. There's info days in Brussels and online. We have, there's matchmaking events that the Horizon Europe Secretariat in Canada is organizing along with some partners. You want to use your own network, as Brita mentioned. Cordis is also an excellent website. It has all the previously funded projects under Horizon Europe and Horizon 2020 and in the past. So you can keyword search in Cordis, find out who is the successful coordinators, and you can then reach out to them directly and see if they'd be interested in working with you. Again, national contact points like myself and the others in Canada and in Switzerland and in other member states can help you find partners. There's the Global Affairs Canada Trade Commissioner Service in the country that you may be interested in. They have deep connections and can help find partners. Of course, there's research publications as well as the industry associations that you may be part of that can help find partners. Next slide, please. So national contact points, what are they? Well, they're the main structure to provide guidance, practical information, and assistance on Horizon Europe because it is very complex. We're generally subject matter experts in their respective fields and have a strong awareness of domestic and international expertise in their cluster. As you can see, we have Canadian NCPs for each cluster. So please feel free to reach out to them directly. Their emails are here, as well as on our website, which is on a subsequent slide. So next slide, please. So we have at least one NCP for every cluster. And if you don't know who to ask, you can always ask me. So here's, we have a website at Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, ISED, where the Canadian Horizon Europe Secretariat is held. And we're updating that website all the time. So please go there frequently. If you have a general question or don't even know where to start, we have a website, an inbox. So you can send all your questions there at Horizon Europe at ised-esed.gc.ca. So please send all your questions there. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out. I'm going to now hand it off to Ari, who's going to share his experiences with Horizon Europe. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks a lot, Tamara and Brita. You're gonna make my life easier since you have presented many valuable information. So myself first, I'm gonna bore you a little bit with a few technical aspects. I'm gonna talk about the two Horizon Europe projects that currently are running and I'm involved. So the first one is called UNIMAS, Unified Modeling and Automated Scheduling for Manufacturing as a Service. This was a call of 2024. I think it was one of the first project that included the Canadian after signing the agreement. Actually, we have submitted the proposal before the signing the agreement, so it was quite hectic afterwards, but everything went well. So we are 17 partners, 16 from Europe, and I'm the only one, ETS, the École de Technologie Supérieure of University of Quebec, that is participating on a very high level. Our goal here is to automate the whole manufacturing ecosystem and introduce the concept of manufacturing as a service. We divided that into three suites. The first one is the modeling, where we apply AI to predict resources, assets, processes, correlations, and in general to provide self-healing aspects for fault diagnosis and compensation of different manufacturing processes. We have the decision-making suite, where we include digital technologies like cloud computing, digital twinning, as well as sustainability aspects like circularity and sustainability. And there, all we do is to optimize the planning and scheduling of the supply chains. And finally, we have the data management suite, where we gather all the relevant data regarding the manufacturing processes and supply chain to feed our AI models and the overall planning and the scheduling. We can go on to the second one. So the second project, it's called Turing, Trustworthy, Unified, Robust, Intelligent, Generative Systems. Again, is under Cluster 4, Horizon Europe project. Here we are 23 partners, and this is the one that we also include partners, Swiss partners from Switzerland. We have CERN, which its situation is a little bit advantageous thanks to its reputation, and ETH, the ETH from Zurich. So here briefly again, our goal is to make more trustworthy generative AI systems, specifically for solving complex physical phenomena. It includes an analysis of the requirements of how complex physical phenomena work. This means that we have to feed into the generative AI systems physical laws, mathematical formulations, simulation tools to make them more robust and more trustworthy. And then we pre-train, fine-tune the LLM, and we apply it into three use cases, which are very important to keep because I'll talk about that a little bit earlier. So the three use cases that we have here is nuclear domain physics models and simulations, particle physics models and simulations, and weather forecasting. All right, so where to start? I think Tamara nicely presented everything. Just to reiterate that you need to check the eligibility from the discussion that I had with colleagues here, is that they learned that now we can participate in Horizon Europe project, and they apply and commit to different pillars without knowing where we should apply. So I just want to reiterate, it's pillar 2. And from pillar 1, because it brought up into the discussion from Brita, we can participate, and there is a support from MyTax. So accepted proposals under Marie Curie, okay, of pillar 1. We have a second chance. We submit a second proposal to MyTax, and we can get up to 5 internships. So the 5 secondments, as they call in Europe, where we can send students at all levels, graduate students. So another important source of information is the Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada. So I would suggest to subscribe to the newsletter, visit the site. It has like many information, including all the contacts of the national contact points that Tamara showed before. And for us, that was very, very helpful. As I said to you, we were one of the first Canadian universities that we had an accepted Horizon Europe project, and very soon enough, the whole happiness and being proud of being able to participate in such programs got replaced by a lot of stress because we didn't know what to do. And hopefully the national contact points helped us a lot. They guided through how to navigate in these uncharted territories. And we are grateful. And my suggestion for you is please make sure that you know who to contact. Once again, and as well, I would like to thank again Tamara for presenting that. So you need to make sure to familiarize yourself with the tenders and call the tenders and proposals at the site that she showed before, where you will find all the call for proposals. You need to check the submission dates. Usually the vast amount of calls just passed. It was like October 2nd. But there are various other deadlines during the year. There are some for February, there are some for April. And my advice is to start way ahead of time. There's a lot of work involved in forming the consortium, in writing the proposal, going back and forth, assigning the work package leaders, task leaders, what to do, how to do it. So it's not 1 month work. It needs to start early enough. I would also like to draw your attention to the fact that there are a few calls that specifically say that, you know, it would be nice to have Canadian partners. I guess it's going to be the same with Swiss partners or Indian partners sometimes, or other partners from associated countries. So so you have to go through the proposals and make sure where you can fit. Also, Tamara showed before the research innovation and innovation types of proposals. You need to make sure that you understand the difference, and also the TRL. You need to estimate where your research lies and the potential of it, where it can reach. That will better help you to position yourself into that. Now, how to form joint consortiums, some rules of thumb from my experience. So the consortiums should reflect the needs of the call. Usually the calls are quite interdisciplinary, and that with that said, I would say don't get discouraged if you see a topic of a cluster in a pillar that it's not overlapping 100% with your experience. You need to go and meticulously see all the calls. Okay, so it's not only one topic, it's, you know, a parent topic, but we need specific technologies, specific expertise that you may be able to provide. So as Tamara said before, it's good to have professional diversity. I think what I like in this kind of project, it's applied research. So obviously we're going to have partners from academia, but from the industry as well. Usually SMEs, but it can go beyond that. And of course, geographical diversity. It's good to show that we're going to create a consortium that can maximize the exploitation, the dissemination by reaching as many markets as we can, always having as benefit the European Union, but of course right now expanding to Canadian, Swiss and other countries. So how are consortiums formed? Okay, there is no magic. There's no any magic involved. You saw in my two projects, one has 17 and the other one has 23. It's not an easy process, but usually how we start is we start with a core idea with few partners. As Tamara said, we need to use our network. We need to reach out to people that we trust. We know that we collaborate very well. Usually it's the coordinator that is more responsible in forming the consortium, but as we read the call for proposal, as we better understand what we need, what are the requirements, it's easy for all of the people involved to reach out to relevant industrial and academic partners and make sure that we cover every aspect of the call, that we have the necessary expertise to show to them that we are able to do it. Obviously, the matchmaking events are very important. Okay, so you have to participate. Like a couple of months ago, I think the Canadian part also scheduled a matchmaking event, but of course there are many others in Europe as well. And as I said before, especially for the RIA projects, we have applied research. So this means that there is a research component, but we need to identify a few use cases, or as we call these partners, pilots, that usually they're coming from the industry, where we're gonna actually implement our research. This is how we're gonna apply our research into their solutions, into their products, making them better, and at the end, having nice demonstrations. A few lessons learned while doing the application. You need to familiarize yourself with the proposal templates, because it's quite different from what we have been used to here in Canada, okay? These are lengthy proposals, and as Tamara showed before, it's usually being split in work packages, then tasks, individual per work package, and so on. So you have to make sure that you know what to do and what to write. The portal is very important as well, so you need to navigate yourself. You need to allow yourself to have time. Do not leave it at the end, okay? Because this will create delays for the coordinator and for all the other partners. Reach out to your institution, university early enough. Since this is a new program, and I'm talking from my experience, especially for our case, which was right while signing the contract. Most organizations, because this is a recent opportunity for us, they don't know how this works, okay? And especially with all the process regarding legal and financial aspects, this is something that we have, that you have to reach out to them, let them know that you plan to apply. And once again, as Tamara said, please don't hesitate to reach out to the national contact points, that I'm sure they're going to help you out, and of course to other universities that you know that have successful projects. As well as, you know, after the acceptance of the proposal, there are a few documents that you need to sign regarding the consortium agreement, the grant agreement, that needs to be scrutinized by legal departments, and sometimes this can create problems. Usually they're not, okay, because we are quite in line with European laws, but again, this takes some time, and that can also create delays for the starting of the project, or create delays and conflicts between the rest of the partners. Okay, so make sure that everything is in order. So let's say that the project has been accepted. Now we are all happy. What to expect? There is quite traveling involved. Usually we have plenary meetings between the consortium. In my projects, this is like a biannual meeting. We have annual reviews, and this is something that you need to consider into your budget, since we're traveling. Our traveling is a little bit more expensive than the European project, so for the European partners. What also you need to expect is tight monitoring. This is again something very different with what we have here. When we write a proposal, it's from the beginning, we have a very detailed schedule. When we're gonna deliver reports, okay, describing all the components that have been created, designed, implemented. We have specific milestones on specific dates that we have to respect. And all these are tightly monitored by annual reviews from the commission. So you need to make sure that you deliver. Okay, and this is it involves many partners and a lot of collaboration. So the one relies on the other for the final execution of the project. And of course, it also reflects on the financing, because at the beginning you get a lump sum, but the rest of the money you get after each task or work package completion. So we have to do our job as it was planned at the beginning. And finally, I think, at least from my perspective, this is a great opportunity to see your research applied directly by the industry. This is something that gives you more confidence and more boost to continue pursuing your contribution and your participation in this kind of projects. So that's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Aris, Tamara, and Brita. And now we're moving on to the question section of our webinar. I invite everyone to put your questions in the chat. We already do have a couple of questions here, and I will be reading them in the order of receiving. I see that Brita has already answered the question that we had regarding the Switzerland being the 11th most important country for Canadians within Horizon Europe. How is the number calculated? But maybe, Brita, you could share a little bit more in relation to the question that you answered briefly in the chat, so the rest of the participants could learn a little bit more about it.
Sure, yeah, sorry, I was too fast. Well, this data about most important or most collaborations in Horizon Europe between countries is based on Horizon Europe. So from 2021, when the program started, and until the cutoff date in August 2025. So well, let's say a little bit more than 4.5 years. And this data is also available on Cordis. It's a EU database where they actually publish from all countries the participation data.
Thank you very much. The next question we have is, how competitive is a typical funding call? What are the success rates?
Well, that depends. There are statistics that you can get, like from previous calls. It depends on the call, how popular it is. Some calls are very popular, so you can attend to have like 80 to 100 submissions, while they fund from 2 to 5 projects. That depends. Okay, but it's usually less than 10% most of the times.
Canadian success rates have been a bit higher in general.
That's good.
Yes, ranging between around 17 to 20%, depending on the call.
Are there any restrictions in terms of publishing results considering industrial involvement?
As part of the program, you must publish, or they call it exploitation of results. And so it's you have to realize that while the language is English, it's not actually English, it's English, Horizon English or European English. So if you translate exploitation into French, you will have a better understanding of it's not negative, it's just sharing your information. But in terms of restrictions, whatever restrictions are involved with that, publishing results, that is a discussion amongst consortium partners.
Exactly. These are stipulated by the consortium agreement that we draft at the beginning of the project, and usually there are some constraints that you have to take the okay from the partners, or you need to give like that amount of days and so on. And as Tamara said, this is one of the major KPIs regarding dissemination, where we usually target a specific number of publications by the end of the proposal, let's say 20, 30 by the end of the 3-year program, if it's a 3-year program.
The next question is it advisable for a Canadian organization to take a lead, or is it better to approach for a EU partner to take the lead? We previously heard that it will be difficult for a Canadian organization to take the lead due to complex process.
I think it really depends on if you have experience with previous Horizon Europe or Horizon 2020 projects. So if you have no experience with these projects, I think it's better to participate as a partner or task leader, just to get a sense of the project and the depth, because dealing with the European Commission and you are the responsible person for making sure that all the results and all of the partners are doing their job. And so if you have that capacity in your organization to do that role, then by all means, but you will have to demonstrate to the evaluators that you will be able to do that role, because if you do not have demonstrated experience doing that, that will be a mark against you from the evaluator's perspective.
We have a question specifically to you, Ari. How much help did you receive from your European colleagues in connecting you and your application to European industry partners? How much of a role did your own education in Europe and Greece and the UK help in involving industry in your proposal?
The reality is that I was not new to the program, since I've spent a lot of time working in European institutions. So much of my previous work was to work on this kind of programs. So I had the experience before, of course, having passed like 10 and more years into the academia in Europe. Of course, that was a very advantageous for me in building my network, in having connections from people that we worked before in other Horizon Europe projects. And as I said to you, that's the key. When you're getting involved into a project, a Horizon Europe project, and you do your job correct, so you start building this core team. Okay, so the part of the core of the consortium that later on can expand. So of course it helped.
Okay, great. Next question. It would be helpful to share more tips about project management, such as establishing and working with an expert advisory committee, effective project governance structure, and lump sum financial model. Can somebody take this question?
So the Horizon Europe Secretariat is working with the EU mission in Ottawa to organize future events, matchmaking, but also legal, financial. There's potentially, it hasn't been finalized yet, but in the coming days, do's and don'ts of proposal writing, webinar on October 23rd. And in addition, there'll be other webinars coming in early 2026 with the release of the 2026-27 work program. So sign up for our newsletter and stay tuned.
Perfect. Thank you, Tamara. And then another question is to you specifically. Are there any funding sources to support proposal development for Canadian organizations?
For proposal development in particular, no. There's the Government of Canada has sent money to the European Union to fund this program from that perspective. So the understanding is that you would the funding would be received from there. There are other sources of funding through SERC, Social Sciences Humanities, for social science research, MyTax, and these are more for events for matchmaking opportunities. So funding for matchmaking through MyTax, SERC, and there's also funding through the Quebec government as well.
Are there any funding resources to support proposal development for Swiss organizations?
No, I mean, there are some maybe organizations who offer there with their own funding, but it's not foreseen on a general level in Switzerland either.
All right, and in the innovation research stream, can the outcome be commercialized by one of the applicants, provided there is supporting consortium agreement about the IP?
Yeah, yes. I mean, that's part also from the exploitation plan, right? So it's we do something not just to do it, but how especially the industrial partners can benefit from it. But of course, anyone that can contribute, and according to what is stipulated in the consortium agreement, it's part of the exploitation plan. It could be part of the exploitation plan.
Around the same time last year, in 2024, we had events from Israeli institutions that tried to recruit collaborators from Canada. And then 2025, we have Switzerland. The Horizon program itself begins in 2028. So our guest is confused about timelines and hopes someone can explain those.
So I can start, and Brita, you can continue if you want. So actually, not just so it was one event that was held at this time last year, but actually in spring 2025, there were a number of matchmaking events. So just understanding how the Horizon Europe program work, it actually ends in 2027. There's certain calls for proposals. So Ari did the calls for proposals that he worked on was under the 23-24 work program. There is a 2025 work program that is pretty much most of the calls are closed or will be closing very soon. And then there will be a 2026-27 work program that will be the calls for those will be opening up in January. And we're already organizing matchmaking events. There's a Arctic or polar matchmaking event under Destination 1, Cluster 5, that will be held on November 6th. There'll be, and we're working with other partners for the critical raw minerals matchmaking event. There is there Cluster 1 matchmaking event at the end of November, but there's a Baltic matchmaking event in the fall, in early January, and hopefully we'll be organizing matchmaking events with our Swiss partners as well. So in addition, we had several matchmaking events in the spring. So to be kept up to date on all of these events that the Horizon Europe Secretariat in Canada is organizing, please sign up for our newsletter, because that's the best way to keep apprised of all the things that we are working on.
Yeah, just maybe also regarding the timeline, I can understand the confusion here because we have Horizon Europe, as Tamara said, from 2021 till 2027. And then actually the 10th of these programs starts in 2028, and the name will be Horizon Europe. So it's quite complicated. I like to talk about Framework Program 9 for this one now to 2027, and then Framework Program 10 will continue. And also, I mean, this event now between Canada and Switzerland is done because although Horizon Europe started in 2021, Canada became associated to the program last year in 2024. So before us, we were associated before, but now for these 4 years, we were not, and will become associated now in November again. So it's, due to political reasons, sometimes countries become part of it, fall out again, come part, or Switzerland at least. But now we are happy that both of us will be participating.
Is there a particular mechanism to connect with potential industry partners in Switzerland to consider joining consortia?
With regard to industry partners, I think the best way would also be to contact EEN, this Enterprise Europe network, because they are really focused on giving or doing such matchmakings between institutions. And I guess the Canadian one would be the one to be contacted, right? If it's a Canadian organization. I'm
not sure.
Yeah. Well, I guess for all Canadian participants or organizations, it would be the Canadian Enterprise Europe network to be contacted.
And or the Horizon Europe Secretariat.
Okay, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much to all the participants of the webinar and all the speakers. I hope you will continue exploring the opportunities for Swiss-Canadian collaboration under the Horizon Europe umbrella. Once again, thank you for participating and have a great rest of the afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you are. Thank you.